Hey there! So maybe you're just getting into steno, and you're thinking about how should I start? Well, the answer of course is going to depend on what your goals are. But after starting court reporting school a few weeks ago, I've been really thinking about comparing my experience in the first few weeks to my experience self-learning lapwing before I started school. And I think I've seen a little bit of debate before on whether the approach to court reporting school needs to be modified or updated. And while I'm not suggesting I have a better idea than what's being taught to me because I've just started, I don't have the full picture yet, it does intrigue me to think about what can be updated about court reporting schooling, if anything. So if you're doing stenography as a hobbyist, you may just have the goal of reaching close to your QWERTY WPM, or just learning the system for fun, and maybe you want to type to your friends on Discord, learn steno in another language, or learn to code in steno, etc. But for anyone trying to become a professional stenographer, there are very specific goals you need to meet. You need to be fast and accurate, that's a high priority. And you need to be doing so to dictation, which means you're listening to something and outputting that as typing. So today I'm going to compare typing trainers, which basically I would summarize it as read and type, versus listening trainers, listen and type, for someone who's in the beginning stages of stenography. I fully agree with the idea that once you're in the higher speeds and you're trying to get really fast, you have to be practicing to the audio because that is the objective. But in school so far, in the theory learning stages where they're just teaching us basic sounds and the very first elements of theory, everything has also been done by dictation. For example, here's a 30 words per minute dictation from my lesson this week.
That seed in the bin.
However, since I came in with a lot of practice under my belt for a lot of the basic sounds, I'm already doing theory dictations to speeds of 100 and 120, given they're very simple words, simple dictations, but I'm going a lot faster than the minimum requirement for school. And I don't know if this is how it's done in all schools, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's so. My philosophy, however, is that in the beginning of a new skill, such as stenography, volume counts way more than quality. I mean, as long as you're not practicing absolute trash, being able to put in more reps is more important than being true to the experience you're going to have doing dictations at 200 words per minute. I mean, as you can see, I came in with the advantage after doing typing trainer only to be doing the faster dictations right now. So now for the reason this space looks really awkward, I'm going to put a bunch of pros and cons here. We're just comparing Real-Time Coach, which is the audio dictations website my school uses, and I think it's like one of like 2 or 3 options out there for stenography students, versus basically the stenography equivalent of typeracer. And these 2 websites I was introduced to by the Lapwing textbook, and I believe they're widely used throughout the open source stenography community, the hobbyists and stuff. And so I wrote a list of stuff I'm going to say here, but it's not organized, so I'm sorry if it really has no rhyme or reason to it, but here we go. And please remember that this is all referring to the beginning stages of learning stenography, as opposed to any of the later ones. Like, once you're in the higher speeds, I'm not talking about this. I'm not advocating for using typing trainers at higher speeds, but I think it could be useful for beginners. And honestly, it's just because it worked on me. But here are the reasons, and me comparing it to the objectives my school has clearly set in what the priorities are for a beginner learning theory. Okay, so first of all, Typey Type and StenoJig have instant feedback, while Real-Time Coach does not. While you're using a typing trainer, the moment you type a word incorrectly, you must correct it and type it correctly. So you instantly know when you got something wrong. However, the philosophy in school is don't look at your keyboard, don't look at your output, don't check anything you're doing until the whole dictation is over. Once you're done, you can check your errors and then find out which words you were typing wrong and correct them. And maybe practice this over and over again a couple more times. And I don't find this particularly helpful to learning the right way to write a word if you don't know that you did it wrong when you did it. So I prefer, as a beginner, to have an instant feedback of knowing, oh, I got that wrong the moment I got it wrong. And I think it's more reinforcing to help you remember to get it right the next time, to have to correct it then and there, as opposed to not knowing you made the mistake when you did. The next one I would actually say is quite big. It's accuracy. And typing trainers have better accuracy, specifically the stenography ones, because they pick up on your backspaces. They pick up on your asterisk presses. and they're able to record those as misstrokes, even if you correct them going forward. Compared to Real-Time Coach, if you use the backspace and you correct your mistake while you're writing because you were aware you made a mistake for whatever reason, and you submit the final product as all correct, then it's none the wiser, and it simply just gives you a score of 100% because the final product was correct. And in School So Far, they've really emphasized like you should have high accuracy, you should be minimizing the use of your asterisk, you should not be backspacing. And if you have time to backspace, you should be typing at a faster speed. So there's no other discipline to not using the asterisk other than yourself, and maybe typing at a speed fast enough for you to not be able to have time to. But in terms of the reward of the accuracy score you get at the end, stenography typing trainers are much harsher on this than Real-Time Coach, and honestly help enforce that higher standard of accuracy as a beginning theory student. Okay, so I filmed this yesterday and I forgot to add some things. So, the typing trainers also know how to count multiple stroke words as correct, even if the input is incorrect in between the strokes, if that makes sense, which is something a normal typing trainer such as like Monkey Type won't do. So in that sense, I think the typing trainer might be able to achieve one of school's objectives better than Real-Time Coach does. And here's me doing a dictation in Real-Time Coach. I use the backspace multiple times, but I submit it and I get 100.
There was a
And here's me doing the same text but in stenojig. And every time I get a word wrong, I know immediately I must backspace it and I must continue. But even if I get the entire thing correct at the end, it does record each misstroke I had made. The next point I have is that typing trainers are more gamified than Real-Time Coaches. And this is important for me as someone who just loves games and is addicted to getting better results. And one of the reasons I improved quickly at stenography at first was because I found the typing trainer to be like an addictive game that I wanted to get a better score at every time. And that's because you're racing the clock and you're able to go as fast as you possibly can. And you're measured in two metrics: words per minute and accuracy. However, in Real-Time Coach, the only metric you get at the end of completing an exercise is the accuracy. And the only way to raise your words per minute is to literally speed up the dictation. So I would say the fact that you have to wait for the dictation to finish, no matter if that's like really fast or really slow, it gives you less control over your own pace and making it feel like it's a game for yourself in racing. Personally, I find it way more like a chore compared to typing trainers, which feel like a game. Okay, next aspect. This one is a point for Real-Time Coach. Typing trainers don't have any sound for you at first, while Real-Time Coach, obviously, everything is sounded out for you. So, for example, if you come across the word has, you may not immediately recognize that it does end in a Z sound. But while you're typing on a typing trainer, you almost have to read it to yourself or read it in your head or out loud to be able to know that you're supposed to say H-A-Z and not H-A-S, because that's how it's literally spelled right there on the screen in front of you. Although that does depend on your theory. Some theories allow you to say H-A-S. But in Real-Time Coach, the person dictating the slow theory exercise can be like, has, and really emphasize and sound it out for you and show you that you are supposed to be using the Z. Another example is like wall, right? W-A-L-L. It looks like it has an A in it, but you may not realize it has the AU sound until you sound it out. And that's hard to identify when you're using the typing trainer at first, and you do have to kind of sound things out for yourself and notice, compared to the dictations where you are given the sound and you just have to listen to it. Okay, another point is, remember how I said schools want you to reduce your use of the asterisk, right? This one is a point against the typing trainers, because in typing trainers, specifically the way that type and stenojig work, it's virtually impossible to continue doing an exercise without correcting your mistakes. So in the end, you must correct every mistake you made, meaning that you must use the asterisk, and there's no concept of dropping. So in this sense, if you make a lot of mistakes, you get in the habit of correcting every mistake with an asterisk, which gets you more used to using the asterisk. However, in Real-Time Coach, if you make a mistake, you can just keep going. You can just ignore it, you can submit your mistake at the end. If you drop some words in the middle, you can just leave that out, you can just keep going. So if you wanted to complete a dictation without ever touching your asterisk to backspace, you could. And so in terms of the objective of using your asterisk less, this one might be a point for Real-Time Coach. However, as I mentioned before about the better accuracy scores, I think having better punishment for using the asterisk is actually in typey type's favor. Okay, next, in stenojig and typey type, especially for typey type, they each provide a graph of how you did in the exercise at the end, and they specifically detail how you had misstroked each of your mistakes. And of course with your cat you can go back and check this, but there's nothing better than instant feedback instead of having to go in and find it yourself. One thing useful about the graph is you can see your speed rising and falling as you continue through the exercise. You can see which words slow you down. You can see which words took you the longest to think about and input. And you can see, like, if you had a problem spot with a bunch of mistakes in a certain area, it really helps you identify what was difficult for you while doing your run. And on the other hand, Real-Time Coach has nothing like that. It can only simply provide feedback on your real-time result, and it doesn't even know anything about what strokes you had made. Another thing I forgot to mention is that stenojig also provides like strokes per second and counts your strokes, which can help you gamify reducing your strokes or increasing your pace. I like seeing my strokes per second because I know there's a target like close to like 3 to 4 a second. The next one, typing trainers do not have, but Real-Time Coach does have a time tracker. So it does count for you all the time that you spend listening to the dictations and submitting. So that counts it up for you, and at my school that is how they are evaluating our practice time. And this is one of the few ways that you can gamify Real-Time Coach, is by simply racking up minutes, which, as we know, doesn't necessarily mean they could be effective minutes. But I've also found that the fact that my school only counts those dictation minutes as practice really discourages and reduces the amount of practice I do outside of listening to audio. And I know it's the most important, but I think there are other supplemental activities or extra drills that I would want to do that I simply just don't feel like I have time for after spending all that time in Real-Time Coach. Real-Time Coach also does have a scores tab where it does track every accuracy that you submit to every single exercise, and you can see exactly how many minutes you spend on each exercise, and it breaks this down really detailed with day-by-day breakdowns. So although the scores aren't detailed compared to the typing trainers have no way of recording what scores you had gotten before and reviewing those. So in that aspect, it's a point for Real-Time Coach. Okay, I'm sure this video is really long already, but I've got one last comparison, and that is that, say you have a group of random words, or even random sentences, or things you want to practice, in stenojig and typey type, there are ways to randomize that. And every single time you practice the same set of words, you're able to randomize their order to basically give you a new experience every single time. And it really keeps you on your toes and prevents you from using your memory to aid you in finishing the exercise. Although I didn't take footage of this, in stenojig there's even a section where you learn the keyboard keys. And even there you can customize, like, I only want left side keys, or I only want right side top row keys, or I only want vowels, or I want vowels plus this key, like so on and so forth. And so it's very customizable on helping you learn the keyboard as well. In contrast, in Real-Time Coach, you really are only limited to what audio is available to you. And so in my case, whatever audio my school has created. And so if they read you certain keyboard presses to teach you the keyboard for the first time, the only way you can practice that again is to do it again in the same exact order. And that also goes for exercises that are made of words or even sentences. The only way you can achieve more repetition is to do the same exact sequence. And after a number of times, especially in a row, I start to memorize it, and I'm no longer relying purely on the audio to help me go through the exercise. And I find that a little bit less effective. So personally, overall, in the beginning stages of steno, I preferred using the typing trainers because they're more gamified, they're more rewarding, and I think that volume is way more important than quality at the beginning stages. Once quantity doesn't improve you any longer, that's when it's time to focus on quantity, and I think that's true with most skills you start. And so after completing the full lapwing theory, I could complete quotes pretty much around 60 words per minute pretty consistently, and if I took the same quote and repeated it maybe 5 to 10 times in a row, rehearsing the strokes, checking some phrasing strokes, then I could get all the way up to maybe 120, 130 words per minute. And so it was rewarding to race against myself and try to set a high score. But of course, schools also have their philosophy. Schools probably couldn't track you well through the typing trainer, and they're more able to verify you're doing practice through a tool like Real-Time Coach. And they've probably done this for a long time. The system probably works. It works on everybody. It gets them through school. I just don't find the beginning stages as fun as they were for Lapwing. So that's my perspective specifically on comparing typing trainers and real-time coach to the objectives my school has for what a beginning student should be focusing on. But if you're a hobbyist and just doing stenography for fun, maybe your objectives are different. And maybe you don't need to be doing any practice to audio at all, and typing trainers are just for you. And if any of you are in court reporting school or were in court reporting school, and your school taught beginning theory very differently, let me know. I'm really curious to hear about it. Overall, let me know your thoughts on this topic and whether you think maybe making the beginning stages of school more fun could prevent more people from dropping out at the very beginning when it's the hardest. Okay, see you next time. Okay, I also forgot to add my week recap. So how was week 5? Theory finally picked up a little bit because there were more sounds I had to switch, including a new move I had to learn called the horizontal slam. Just kidding, but I found it difficult to do SZ, which was a new chord pattern. It's really difficult for me because I don't have any wide keys on my machine, but I just have to put up. Final V was also a change for me. Well, I think we also learned initial G, initial V, long E, those were the same. And also, was initial B this week? Can't remember. But the big thing was that new speeds were provided. So now I can practice at 80 words per minute and 100 words per minute and 100 at 20% faster, which mathematically is theoretically 120. And this is around the top speeds I hit when I'm rehearsing or repeating a passage, so I'm finally at a place of challenge. It's not too challenging though, and I can still do it, so at least it's less inane. Theory also added a warm-up routine this week that has added more time to my practice routine. Theoretically, you're allowed to reduce other time, but I kind of expanded after I couldn't stop myself from repeating typing trainer. So shout out to my teacher for letting me use that for my warm-up. Legal terms, the chapters got a little shorter this week, so it wasn't quite as terrible, but I'm really counting the days until this class is over. Oh, I don't look forward to each day, but 2 more weeks left and I'm free. Okay, now it's the real end of the video.